morning and welcome to the Foggy Dew. This is Colin. Well, gang, I wanted to go ahead and get a second show out this week. I am going to be traveling early part of next week. I hope to get a show out later next week, but I'm going to have to do my best because I don't exactly know where next week's going to take me. And to be fair, there was so much news that dropped this week. I'm like, man, there's so much to talk about, and I wanted to kind of knock some of this off my plate. And I guess I'll just dive into the show with that. And I guess the best place to start is with Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I talked about a week or so ago about Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard is leaving the Trump administration. Her husband has cancer and she's leaving to go take care of her husband, which is noble. But she is really throwing a match behind her, just releasing stuff, and it's awesome. Well, a week or so ago, she had dropped this intelligence. The intelligence basically revolved around this U.S.-funded biolab program that was denied repeatedly by the Biden administration. Well, that drop that she had, a week or so ago, talked about how U.S. taxpayer money was going to fund gain-of-function research at 120 biolabs across 30 different countries. And when you talk about gain-of-function research, be very clear that what we're talking about is a biowarfare program. The media and people that are defending this talk about how this stuff is used for defensive purposes. You don't sit there and monkey around with anthrax, making it more transmissible, and sit there with a straight face and tell me that it's for defensive purposes only. That would be like a weapon of last resort. But to be totally clear, your taxpayer money was going to fund biowarfare programs. And I talked about the Biden administration just a second ago. These U.S.-funded biolabs were a central lie of the Biden administration. They denied this repeatedly. They denied it under oath. There were people in the administration, the Biden administration, that denied it under congressional oversight. And of course, they're sitting here denying it while, air quotes, conspiracy theorists had all the receipts. This information about U.S.-funded biolabs was very well known in Alex Jones land. All of this stuff is out there, and the mainstream media never picked up on it. And not only did they not pick up on it, they smeared you as a conspiracy theorist for even looking into this. So here you have the media, you have the Biden administration lying to the American people's face about U.S.-funded biolabs. And to be clear, all of this revolved around a central character, and that's Tony Fauci. The Biden administration knew exactly that Tony Fauci was knee-deep in the biolab deal. They knew it. The federal government knew that Tony Fauci was knee-deep in these biolabs external to the U.S. And here's the media pitching it to the American people that Tony Fauci is some kind of saint that developed a vaccine and protected. The narrative of this is so ridiculous. That Tony Fauci came in on his white horse and saved the world with his miracle vaccine. It's this rosy, starry-eyed picture of what Tony Fauci really is, which is a guy that was knee-deep in biowarfare development for the U.S. government, and they hid it from you. He was a central character in this. And the thing I think is so galling about it is when Joe Biden walked out of the presidency, he gave Anthony Fauci a very specific pardon, an auto pen pardon. And the thing that I think is so crazy about the pardon that Anthony Fauci got, it's a preemptive pardon. I don't know if I've ever seen that in U.S. history, meaning Tony Fauci has not been charged with any crime. There is no crime levied at Tony Fauci at all, yet he needed a pardon? So you have a guy that has no charges filed against him, but somehow this man has a Biden auto pen signature that covers him back to a very specific date, which would be 2014. And 2014, to be completely clear, is when all this the gain of function research was offshored off the US continent. But this entire situation becomes even more problematic as these facts keep emerging from the Director of National Intelligence. Tulsi Gabbard's last day with the administration is Friday the 19th. And there she is dropping this intelligence on Thursday night, the 18th. So she has this massive X post and drops all this information. Here's some highlights here. Here's Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard on X, quote, Dr. Fauci provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab, worked with politicized elements within the intelligence community to suppress the truth about his actions and hide the virus's lab leak origins, and lied to Congress while under oath in 2024. It's time you know the truth. This goes on and on. All of this in a deliberate attempt to cover up the truth and shift the blame and attention away from Fauci's own actions. I'm going to read one more paragraph because it's so crazy. The tactics were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized, self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe, end quote. Guys, that's the final piece to the puzzle, for me at least. Because at the end of the day, every single conspiracy theory has been proven true. Every single conspiracy theory has been proven true. And the question that you want to ask yourself with all of this stuff when you're looking at it, so what? So what? I've known this for 5 years. If you would just woke up out of a coma and didn't know this, I'm really, really sorry for you. But at the end of the day, arrest this man already. Why is he not in leg irons? And if you're telling me it's because of a pardon, then I want to go ahead and test the legality of this auto pen pardon. But if you're looking at this and reading this information that this is the highest ranking intelligence officer in the United States government. If what Tulsi Gabbard is saying is true, Anthony Fauci should be in jail. No question. He should never see daylight again. And I have a personal stake in this because the pain that was inflicted by COVID affected everybody. It affected children. It affected families, elderly relatives. You just had this total ripple effect of damage that happened from COVID. Economic, social, you name it. It was damage all across U.S. society in the entire world. And then beyond the gain of function research, if it came from a lab, it was either intentional or unintentional. So you have a lab leak from something that shouldn't have been occurring in the first place. Millions of people died because of it. And then the same guy that was involved in this then decided to roll out some bogus vaccine that he developed back in the 80s. And my sincere hope with this, when I say so what, until I see Tony Fauci in a jail, I don't really care about this stuff. My sincere hope is that all of this with Tulsi Gabbard is intentional disclosure by the administration. It's intentional disclosure to inform the public of what really occurred, to educate them, to prepare your mind. They're stretching your mind with this. Because think about the drops that have occurred over the last year or so since Trump came into office. I don't think that this isn't planned. Because it's totally coordinated with precision. You had the Russiagate information. Now you're seeing the 2020 information coming out. The final piece of that was COVID. In all three of those events, Russiagate, 2020, and COVID are all connected. They're all connected because it was a 10-year slow overthrow of the U.S. government, the duly elected U.S. government. And what that is a subversion of the government, and that's a coup. Tony Fauci has to go to jail. We have to have justice. COVID was too big of a world event to just brush this away and say, well, what are you going to do about it? It's all over with. No, it's not over with. We have to have accountability for what happened in COVID, and I have to have justice even if the heavens falls. So as much as I appreciate the information coming out from the DNI's office, I want to see results. I don't want to see the facts. I want to see accountability. And I think everybody listening shares that sentiment. So I guess we'll watch where it all goes. So switching gears, obviously we've all been inundated this week about information about Iran and this MOU that got signed. And I got a ton of text about Iran like, hey, is this a good deal? What do you think about this? So I'm just going to go ahead and put my thoughts out there. And to be fair, look, I read the MOU. And an MOU is a memorandum of understanding. And I guess I always try to look at big picture. So I want to look at big picture here when I talk about it, beyond the MOU, beyond the events on the ground. I want to talk about big picture here. I think where I start with this entire thing is that we have never really had a president in the United States that took on Iran directly. Ever. Never. I mean, ever since Iran became a real threat, like in the 70s and 80s, we've never had a president that took this seriously. And Obama is not serious. That was not that was not a serious proposal they had with that Iran nuclear deal. It's just like Obamacare. It's another joke. So I guess you want to ask yourself, looking at the Trump administration's actions in Iran, was what Donald Trump did wise? Was it productive? Was it Israel's war? Did this thing help the United States? Did it achieve its aims? And I think anybody being objective has to say, you know what, we need more time to fully understand the answers to those questions. But if you're asking me this week with the MOU, the ink drying on the MOU, here's my read on it. You can't have a nuclear Iran. Period. End of discussion. You can't have a nuclear Iran with China pulling the strings on them. And I've talked about it on the show. China, to me, was the real issue in this whole Iran thing. China was funding Iran. They were arming them. And I think if you look at it, Iran was getting a little bit too big for its britches. You can't have a terroristic theocracy with well-armed, like nuclear weapons, right, in charge of one of the biggest global arteries for oil in the world. You can't have it. So I guess when you look at this situation and you're trying to figure out what was the plus minus on this thing, I guess on the plus side, we put no boots on the ground. There was no occupation with U.S. forces like we had in Afghanistan. And to be fair, the conflict itself wrapped up relatively quickly. This wasn't some 10-year quagmire like, again, Afghanistan. And I think anybody that knows anything, the appetite was not there by the American people to put boots on the ground. If you put boots on the ground, that would have sank Donald Trump in this administration. So again, looking at the plus side, we destroyed their Navy. We didn't put boots on the ground. We destroyed their air defense. Our brave servicemen and women knocked out a huge percentage of their missile systems. Their nuclear facilities are under about 100 feet of rubble. So if you look at it that way, like we don't want a nuclear Iran, their nuclear ambitions, by bombing them in this way, their nuclear ambitions are stymied for this foreseeable future. I mean, you got to dig out the rubble there. And I think Donald Trump, the only targets that he really had left in Iran, I mean, I think they destroyed like 90% of the missile systems. The remaining targets that they had were all civilian infrastructure, which you don't want to go down that road. And civilian infrastructure would be like roads, bridges, power plants, water facilities. Those aren't viable military targets. So again, looking at the plus side of this, like they didn't go down that road. They stuck to military targets. And military targets includes the regime. The regime lost a lot of its senior leadership. And to be fair, the Iranian leadership, the regime, they easily replaced these guys. Like Abdul died, so you insert Mohammed. It's designed to not be overthrown. That's what they do. It's a regime. It's a self-perpetuating regime. They just plug people in. But I guess if you look at the MOU, Donald Trump got them to agree not to develop nukes. Now, whether or not they do that, I guess remains to be seen. My understanding of the MOU is that we should be getting their nuclear material. And I guess after the nuclear threat has been abated, what do we really want beyond that? You can't do much else. I mean, if you have no military targets left and you're going to be getting all the nuclear dust, what do you really want? You don't want to keep attacking them kinetically. So what you would want to do is exert economic pressure. So you exert economic pressure for Iran to act normal. You provide them an incentive. Now, are they going to take that? Are they going to take that carrot? I would say probably not, because they're radicalized zealots that want to commit terror on the infidel. And I guess just looking at it pragmatically, like, is this a great deal? Is this a great MOU? No, but it's a deal. And I'm telling you right now, as a student of history, this whole thing with Iran and this deal with Trump, this is going to be the dipstick on Donald Trump's historical view. It's going to be like a weather vane. Again, look at what's coming out of it. Because you got to look and see beyond the MOU, like what positives are occurring, what negatives are occurring. Oil and gas are falling for the midterms. That's a positive. Trump has the optics that this whole thing is over with. So in the short term, he looks like a genius. Now, the problem with it is that's short term because you have a problem, and those problems are Iran itself and then Israel. But the way the MOU is structured, if Iran or Israel breaks this deal, then Trump is responding to their aggression. He's not the initiator, so he's bounced the ball back to them. And to be fair, if I look at this whole I just mentioned Israel. To me, when I look at this entire situation, and I kind of called this when this whole thing started, if Israel wants to act like a fool and start bombing Iran right now, they're going to look really dumb on the world stage. And Israel looking foolish now, I promise you, is a win politically for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump broke with Israel here. Israel is not a signatory to the MOU. If they want to keep attacking people, they're going to do it on their own initiative, and they're going to look horrible. And I guess looking at it in that lens, Israel got a really bad deal here, and that's a good thing for you. Because if I look at Israel, Israel's a real problem. Israel's a real problem in the Middle East. They have been acting warlike in this entire thing since October 7th happened. Every country has a right to defend itself and provide an appropriate response, but what they have done seems increasingly warlike. And not only do they appear increasingly warlike, it appears like they committed war crimes in places like Gaza. And here you have the United States funding war crimes. So it's just a really bad look on the United States funding a country that's acting in this manner. And that's the problem for Israel, is that Israel is losing their USA benefactor. People are done with Israel in US politics. If Israel wants to fight, if Israel wants to commit war crimes, they can do it without my tax money. And I think if you look at a broad scope of the electorate in the United States, I think that everyone right and left is seeing this. It's totally exposed that Israel is a problem for the United States. We are not allies with Israel. I think it's fair to say that at this point. We are not. Israel uses the United States for their own objectives. And to be fair, they need us more than we need them. I always look at this whole thing in scope. You keep looking at the plus side of this thing. Who in the media is saying this is a bad deal? Always watch the response. Always watch the response, because the people that are saying it's a bad deal are people like China, Russia, Iran saying it's a bad deal, Israel saying it's a bad deal. The Democrat Party is saying it's a bad deal, and the establishment media is telling you it's a bad deal. If they think it's a bad deal, then it's probably a decent one. If you base that entire calculus on the Foggy Dew rubric, it means that we're doing okay. Because if the bad actors don't like it, then it's probably a good thing. And it's funny because, again, I'm just a student of the media. I saw a clip of Jessica Tarloff on Fox. And if you don't know who Jessica Tarloff is, she is a liberal commentator with like Trump derangement syndrome. She used a media trick in this whole thing, this whole analysis about Iran. And I wanted to call it out because I thought it was so perfect. Of course, Jessica Tarloff hates this deal because she's got Trump derangement syndrome. She has a clinical pathology of it. But it's just very typical for the liberal media to use this trick. And what she does is she quotes fake conservatives. She quotes rhinos. What people like Jessica Tarloff do is they quote people that the base hates. So here's Jessica Tarloff on Fox the other day talking about this MOU in the deal. Quote, Ben Shapiro called it a disaster. Bill Cassidy called it the worst foreign policy blunder in decades, end quote. That's Jessica Tarloff's proof source. That is the liberal media's proof source. What she does is she operates like people like Ben Shapiro and Bill Cassidy are speaking for the base. What she does is she couches it and she says, see, even these staunch conservatives hate this deal. And I mean, FYI to Jessica Tarloff, lady, everybody on the planet hates Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is shedding viewers like crazy because he's a total shill for the Israeli government. He is a fake conservative. What Ben Shapiro is a plant that got exposed over time. And a person like Bill Cassidy, she's talking about Bill Cassidy like some kind of principled conservative. Bill Cassidy was the sitting senator out of Louisiana that just got nuked into outer space. She's quoting a rhino establishment scumbag. A person like Bill Cassidy is absolutely loathed by the base. We can't stand him. Bill Cassidy is a person like Mike Pence. He's a John Cornyn. He's a Mitt Romney. He's a cartoon character conservative. Again, she's quoting a guy that was just destroyed in a primary in Louisiana. He has clinical Trump derangement syndrome, same as Jessica Tarloff, but that's her guy. Tarloff loves that. It's a total trick. They use people. Well, Adam Kinzinger said this. Liz Cheney said that. Read any online publication, watch the media. They absolutely love quoting these people. People like Bill Cassidy, people like Ben Shapiro hate Donald Trump. They're tools. They find utility in talking about these. The media calls people like this brave patriots that are speaking out against Madman Trump. It's almost like Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney's the perfect example of this. Dick Cheney to the liberal media was Satan. Dick Cheney was Lucifer until the media found utility in Dick Cheney. And the media utility was Dick Cheney talking about how bad Donald Trump was for the American people. And the refrain is so funny. Like, see, even Dick Cheney, the GOP stalwart, thinks Trump is terrible. Like Dick Cheney is some kind of thought leader inside the GOP. But you look at like a Jessica Tarloff, this is who Fox News thinks is a liberal political pundit worth their salt. Jessica Tarloff, by speaking in this way, it just shows herself to be totally clueless. And she's misreading the room and the situation, thinking that people like Bill Cassidy speak for the base. Anyway, getting back to the deal. Is this a great deal? You're going to have to wait and see. The test for you is going to be enforcement of the deal. Because if Iran doesn't want to play ball here, if they want to break the peace, we're going to have to just hit them super hard. And that's what'll happen. We can bomb them right back to the negotiating table. And unfortunately, we're in a position now where we have to. So Iran better not act up. And the unfortunate part of that is if you look at it like on the negative side, if you have to bomb them back into submission, if they act out of line, that means that you're going to have to keep assets there. So the United States military is still going to be in this area of the world, but it's not going to be like Afghanistan. And the reason you have to keep assets there is because Iran is going to break this MOU eventually. Iran is going to act up at some point. They're zealots, right? This is a religion to them. Killing the infidel is a religion. You don't give up your religion because you signed an MOU with somebody, the infidel. So Iran is going to break it, and I'm going to guarantee you right now, Israel's always going to break this. And I guess I shouldn't say always, but they're going to absolutely break this. I don't think Israel gets it yet. Israel doesn't understand what's going on here, and I guarantee you that Israel's going to break this. And it's so interesting to me watching this MOU and what's coming out in the media because Israel has finally been put on notice. And it's interesting. I don't want to make this into an Israel thing, but this week was actually the first time I have heard anyone in our government push back on Israel publicly. So here's Vice President J.D. Vance. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance talking out about this. Quote, if I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have left. 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel is not Donald J. Trump. Anybody in Israel who thinks that their biggest problem is the president of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in. End quote. That is an extraordinary rebuke of Israel from the vice president. That's extraordinary. I've never heard somebody in the administration or in US government speaking out like that about Israel. Like, you need to sit down and shut up here. And it's interesting because J.D. Vance didn't stop. He continued this whole harangue against Israel in a video interview. Here, this was in response to Israel. So Israel obviously opposes this MOU. They're not a signatory, which means they got left there at the kiddie table. So here's J.D. Vance speaking to Israel's response in opposition to the deal. J.D. Vance, quote, my response would be, what is your exact proposal? You're a country, meaning Israel, of 9 million people. You can't just kill your way out of solving every single national security problem that you have, end quote. That's wild, man. He's talking directly to Israel. You can't just kill your way out of solving every single national. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly what they do. They leveled Gaza. They denied aid to women and children. They're killing everybody. And I guess great job, J.D. Vance. I'm totally impressed with J.D. Vance here. I'm going to give this guy props because Israel has been totally unhinged since October 7th. Right and left, Israel's losing friends fast in the U.S. And long-term support for Israel is over. It's imperiled. Because the reality is, if you start looking at the stark political reality of Israel's situation, this was their Waterloo. They're done now. They're on the back slope going down because whoever runs in 2028, right and left, is going to have to face this issue. Unconditional support for the state of Israel is over, and that is a political reality now, and you're starting to see the opening salvos coming from the vice president. And the interesting thing, I talk about Bill Cassidy and Pence and all these guys, the Rhino class and the establishment DC people love the state of Israel. People like Ted Cruz, Mike Huckabee, John Thune, Mitch McConnell. They might love Israel, but guess what? The American people are done with Israel. And I can promise you this based on J.D. Vance getting out of line and talking like this, supporting Israel on the 2028 campaign trail is going to be political suicide. And I think J.D. Vance is getting ahead of this right now. And to be fair, that's a good move politically for him. And I don't even know if this is J.D. Vance specifically. It might be Donald Trump using J.D. Vance as a proxy. But it's just so interesting watching how this plays out because if Israel acts out of line now, it's 1,000% on Israel. Israel's going to be seen as the aggressor. They just isolated themselves. And you know what? Good. We have our own issues, man. This country has its own issues. I don't need to be worried about what Israel needs. I care about what America needs. Let's focus on winning here. And no joke, we have a country to save. Not only do we have a country to save, we have the midterms coming fast. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Iran. I just wanted to get that all out there. We'll all be watching how it goes. So switching gears to more of a social topic, it's interesting. I think if you listen to the show, you know I live in Missouri and I grew up in the St. Louis metro area. Well, growing up in the St. Louis metro area obviously made me a Cardinals baseball fan. And I can promise you this as a kid that was born in the 70s, growing up in the 80s in St. Louis, the St. Louis Cardinals were everything to a kid like me. Listening to Jack Buck on the radio with the window open, like as a kid, I did that. That was the tapestry of my youth. So you had Buck and Shannon on the call. You'd listen to it on the radio. And then as I grew up, the 90s had Mark McGwire. The 2000s, they had a great run of baseball with Pujols. But I guess growing up in St. Louis, I absolutely loved baseball. I loved baseball really until COVID because Black Lives Matter just got plastered all over my TV with Major League Baseball and COVID. The whole Major League Baseball push on Black Lives Matter turned me off in COVID. I don't even watch it anymore. Somebody asked me the other day, I didn't even know them. I couldn't name 4 people on the Cardinals roster. I just found it such a turnoff. Like, I go to watch baseball it's just kind of like, I love the history of it. I love the pace of the game. And here I am, a baseball fan, watching multi-millionaire babies, baseball players, just juveniles, multi-millionaire juveniles, wagging their finger in my face as a fan and telling me I'm some kind of racist. Man, I checked out. And I checked out and I never went back. And to be fair, I don't really miss it much. And all these professional sports right about that time started developing this like woke bend. Like you had Major League Baseball that went head over keister for Black Lives Matter. I mean, the NFL still today has the Black national anthem. The Black national anthem. I mean, I have friends that watch this stuff. I'm like, I can't even believe this. To me, we only have one anthem. I'm an American citizen. I have one anthem, and I don't recognize the Black national anthem as it. And I tune into one NFL game every year, and it's the Super Bowl. And the only reason we do it is because it's a social event, and I want my kids to be involved in it. But the NFL still has this like end racism stuff printed in the end zone. And even if you get beyond like the NFL, look at the NBA. The NBA is so bad. If you go back and look at like Shaq and Kobe, to Bird and Magic, to Michael Jordan, if you look at the NBA now under David Silver, I mean, the NBA is like this woke China-owned product. And it's not even basketball. They don't even play a sport I recognize. So it's like disinterested in NBA, disinterested in the NFL, disinterested in Major League Baseball. The only major professional sport that I can watch other than like a golf is like the National Hockey League. The NHL is still halfway normal. And the players have respect for the game and the respect for the fans. They just go about it differently. They scrubbed all that woke stuff out. But Major League Baseball, as a carrier of American history, has been a total disaster the last few years. And to be fair, I don't really understand it. And they really have not modified their stance publicly since COVID. They're running a business, and I don't think Major League Baseball has figured out that both sides, right and left, like baseball. I mentioned at the beginning of this rant, like I go to be entertained. I want to watch baseball and just turn my brain off for a few hours and not think about the stress of the day. Nobody goes to a baseball game wanting a moral lecture. They just want to catch a game and have fun, have a couple beers. And I guess you might be asking yourself, why is this person even talking about this? It's because the San Francisco Giants had a Pride Night last Friday. So they have a Pride Night at the ballpark. And what happened is the San Francisco Giants, the team had to wear hats with the San Francisco Giants logo in the pride flag colors. And look, that's their prerogative. I have no issue with that as a business decision. If that's your business decision, great. I don't have to agree with their business decision. Because they have every prerogative to do that, and I have every prerogative to turn it off. That's fine. I have no problem with that. The problem with all of this is that the players are now pushing back against Major League Baseball. The players are now standing up and saying they've had enough, and good. There were 3 pitchers on the Giants team that spoke out the other night with this gay pride stuff on the cap. These men were forced to wear signage that don't agree with them morally. And that's their right. They have every right to disagree with what they're being asked to wear by their team. So what these guys did as a protest, these 3 players wrote Bible verses on their hats right next to the gay pride flag logo. Simple. They just wrote Bible verses on their hats. They spoke out. But the problem with that is that Major League Baseball then warned them not to do that. So now the employer is telling the employee that they can't do that they have to step in line with whatever ideology is being pushed by the team. This whole thing has now been escalated to the Attorney General of the United States, and Harmeet Dillon is looking into this. Because the problem with this is that Major League Baseball, in its proxy in the San Francisco Giants, are now compelling speech. You are compelling speech by making an employee wear something like that. Can you imagine going into your office and having your management tell you that you better wear this gay pride shirt or else? You better wear this Black Lives Matter shirt or else. And that's not just compelling speech, that's doubling down on silly and infringing on people's rights. And I guess if you go beyond, I think it's so interesting watching this as like kind of a dissection of culture now. culture changed. And I don't know if Major League Baseball figured it out. In 2020, if you go back just 6 years ago, in 2020, you could do this and get away with it. Meaning you could force somebody to do this. You could wag your finger and coerce them. But people are done with these tactics. People are done with this whole thing overall. And that's really the problem with what we see with the gay pride flag, the Black Lives Matter stuff. The problem with it is that the left makes this stuff compulsory. You wear this gay pride logo or else. Wear this hat the way that we say it, or you're some kind of bigot sexist. People are done with that, man. And that's the problem with all of this. That's the problem with Black Lives Matter. That's the problem with the gay pride stuff, the LGBTQ stuff, all of it. Because it is now morphed beyond social awareness into a religion. This is now a religion for these people. It is a religious movement by political zealots. They want to use the force of the state to coerce people to agree with them politically. They want to use force of the government to accomplish their goals. They started this back in 2020. They're using force by public pressure. They're trying to cancel these people, shame them. They want to fire them. It's transformed itself into a religious movement that's enforced by the Gestapo. And again, great thing for American culture. We're done with it. And I think anybody that knows me, and I'm just going to say, I'm a Christian. I was a born Catholic. I'm a Christian. And I know plenty of gay people. I know plenty of black people. I know plenty of Indians. Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares about that stuff, man. You know what I care about? Are you a normal person? Are you a good, kind person? Do you raise nice children? It's 2026, man. This whole concept of like mass racism in U.S. society, like mass racism and bigotry, is just this outmoded canard that's used politically. It's using race and sex and color to divide people. And I was thinking when I was writing this whole thing, like, my son is a wrestler, and I've mentioned that on the show before. He's 16 going on 17. So he's a wrestler. Do you know who he wrestles with? Do you know who he wrestles against? His team, if you look at his wrestling team, it's white kids, it's black kids, it's Latino kids. But you know what it is? It's just dudes. It's a bunch of 16, 17-year-old kids that don't see color. It's not 10 blacks, 10 whites, 10 Latinos. It's 30 dudes on a team. It's 30 dudes who like Metallica and AC/DC and getting out there and competing on the mat. These kids like UFC and hanging out. That's their commonality. They like snapping at each other. They like laughing at social media. And all this segmentation does by these people that are obsessed with these superficial characteristics, all this segmentation does is provide kids, people like my son, a negative thought about the world. Most people in their day-to-day lives are totally beyond all this. I get it. Okay? I get all of it. I understand the historical oppression. I get it. Message received. Stop. Because otherwise, you're just a perpetual minority that wants minority status all the time, and you want special carve-outs for permissions. That's what they want. But I guess Major League Baseball doesn't understand society. They don't understand that culture has moved beyond this. They're still captives of this entire permission structure of woke. Should Major League Baseball ask Hindu players to eat hamburgers? Do you want a Muslim player smearing bacon grease all over their bat? I mean, use your brain. Just play baseball. Stop with shoving all this ideology down my throat. Play baseball and stop the nonsense. And let me just stop here, because those three players, have real courage. Those three guys that wrote Bible verses on their hat. And that's Jackie Robinson courage. That's what should be celebrated in a liberal society. And I guess if you move beyond the Giants, there's even better news that came out. There is a minor league baseball team in New York called the Revolution. Well, the Revolution just had a revolution because apparently on Wednesday, the Revolution actually refused to wear pride logos. They had like on their sleeve, they had like a rainbow patch. The entire team decided not to do it. Not three players, the entire team. The Revolution forfeited the game. The players had enough. Great. We need more of that. I'm glad people are finding out where their nuts are again. That's real courage. Stand up to these culture bullies. Stand up to these rainbow bullies, the BLM bullies. Because what I'm telling you right now is they've lost their ability to coerce people. And these people don't know it yet, but they lost the war. Culture's changing, and that's a good thing. Kids are not interested in this. My son's wrestling team can prove that. That's the only case study I know about it. Kids don't care. Parents don't care. It's 30 dudes on a team, not 10 white, 10 black. They're just dudes. And that's the way all this should be. Can we just enjoy a game without having that shoved in our face? Anyway, I'm proud of all these people, and I'm really glad for those guys on the Revolution team. Good. There's something more important than a paycheck. And sometimes you have to stand up and do things you don't like. So anyway, I'll go ahead and stop ranting for the week. Again, I'm going to be traveling next week. I should have a show later in part of next week. I'll do the best I can. But I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up. If you like the show, please go ahead and tell a friend about it. If you would, please follow us on Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram at Foggy Dew Daily. If you have questions for the show, please go ahead and email us at foggydew95@gmail.com. But in the meantime, I'd ask you to say a prayer, ask questions, and stay vigilant. This is the Foggy Dew, signing off.